Let's go.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Ron and thank you for stopping by. This is going to be part 2 of a 2-series video. If you missed the part 1 video, I'm going to leave a link here for you and you can go back and check that out. I also did a second day of test flights in a much different environment and I'll leave that link above as well. Totally different trail conditions between the 2 videos that I did. So I think it's worth a look if you haven't seen both of those videos. And in this video, I want to do a couple of things. First, I want to give you my thoughts and impressions based on the test flights I've done over the last few days. Second, I want to cover a setting called height floor settings within the companion application. And third, I want to cover all 4 methods of flying this drone. Yeah, there's actually 4 different ways you can fly this. So let me just say my impressions are based on flying with the beacon and the companion app. And if you watched the previous 2 videos, you know I was tracking myself on my One-Wheel XR. Now, I purchased just the beacon because I want to use the drone specifically for tracking and not so much for aerial or video shots. I have my other drones for that. Now, the tracking combined with its object avoidance are going to be the primary reasons that you're going to want to buy this particular drone. I'll also say it right up front that Skydio 2 is not going to be for everybody. So let's just get that out of the way right up front. Okay, let me start with the things that I really do like about this drone. First, the flight times are very impressive. You get a fantastic 23 minutes out of a fully charged battery, and it's a noticeable difference as compared to some of the other drones I've been flying, like the DJI Mavic Air and the DJI Spark. It really feels like the Skydio 2 is up in the air for quite a long time, and the flight times are absolutely great. So that I really do love. The other feature I really love is the beacon and the wand control feature. You just point the drone to where you want it to go, and it goes there. It's an awesome feature. I found that the wand control to be more powerful and accurate than relying solely on the directional buttons on the beacon itself. I had mistakenly hit the wrong directional buttons a few times and just found the wand feature where you point and click to be just more intuitive and feels and acts more like a computer mouse when you're moving files around and documents on your computer, kind of like that. So kudos to Skydio for that feature. It's great. You're going to love that. Now the wand feature worked really well as I navigated through the trails on my second day, and I moved the drone away from people who were walking or running as I was coming through on the one wheel. Now, obviously, you want to do this when you have a more open trail like I did on the second day of testing. It's not something you'd want to do in a really narrow trail where the Skydio 2 might be sent off into the trees. And the object avoidance is really good. And I was extremely impressed with the few shots, like the ones here, where the Skydio 2 was flying sideways and just buzzing past these trees. This was just an awesome shot. Made me a bit nervous, but man, it looked fantastic. In post here. On the downside, I didn't like the sync times between the Skydio 2 and the beacon and the phone app. It did take a bit of time to sync up with the GPS. A few times I had no one in the trails I was riding, but by the time I set everything up, people started showing up. Not sure if there's anything Skydio can actually do to improve these sync times, but that would be useful. There were also a few times where I would have liked to move the Skydio further away from me to capture more of the scenery while tracking me. But there's limitations in the Skydio firmware that keep it within a specific distance while a subject's being tracked. Just an observation. Now, overall, I had a fantastic time riding the one wheel and flying the Skydio 2. It's a perfect pair. If you can find the right environment, it's a ton of fun to fly. The next thing I want to talk about is a feature setting called height floor setting. This feature is enabled by default and was enabled during the majority of the flights that I had done during testing. It's an important setting to understand because this setting determines if the Skydio 2 will always attempt to stay at least 8 feet above the subject when following, even at the expense of tracking performance. Again, this feature is enabled by default. The manual goes on to say that the height floor setting can have a significant impact on the Skydio's 2 tracking performance. Now, I did find a slight contradiction in the user manual on page 16 because the manual goes on to read, while this setting is enabled, Skydio 2 will attempt to remain at least 6 feet above the selected subject while in any autonomous mode. I'm not sure which it is because earlier the manual was saying 8 feet. So let's just say it's somewhere between 6 and 8 feet. Now, when the feature is enabled, your flights can be affected in the following ways. First, While following you, the Skydio 2 may become trapped by obstacles and unable to continue following due to the height restrictions, even though the space below it is actually clear. Secondly, you'll be prevented from lowering the Skydio 2 below the 8 feet height floor anytime the subject is being tracked, such as when you're using the on-screen controls to set the desired follow height or using the beacon's wand feature. Now, Skydio 2 does make an interesting note that disabling the height floor setting may increase tracking performance by allowing the Skydio 2 to fly under low-flying obstacles, like branches and overhangs, to maintain a visual line of sight. Now, disabling this feature also allows you to set the preferred height very low to the ground, capturing what they're calling high-energy type shots from a more unique ground hugging type perspective. Now, I didn't really get a chance to do the low ground hugging with the Skydio, so I'm going to look forward to try to test that out and get some footage for you guys up on that as well. I think that's going to be a pretty interesting shot. However, Skydio only recommends disabling this feature when operating in a wide open outdoor space with no people, animals, or other moving objects nearby. Remember, the Skydio 2 can't avoid objects that are moving. Cars, balls, animals, other drones, people, or similar objects will not be avoided if they're moving faster than walking speed. So before disabling this feature, just be aware of your surroundings. And unless you're 100% sure no other people or animals or moving objects are going to be in your flight path, I would leave the feature enabled. Again, that's the default value. Okay, next I want to just cover the 4 different methods of flying the Skydio 2. The one most are going to be familiar with is obviously flying with a remote controller. The second is flying with just your Android or iOS phone and the Skydio 2 app. The third would be just using the beacon. And the fourth would be flying with the beacon in combination with the phone companion application. The fourth option is how I've been using the Skydio 2 during all the testing and will probably be my preferred method of flying because it gives you the most functionality for combining the tracking and your distance. You have full control over the Skydio 2 app and you can visually see what's going on in the Skydio 2 within the app, and you can fully utilize the beacon's 1.5 kilometer range. Now, some other observations that I made while flying were these. In my part 1 video, I noticed there were several times where the Skydio 2 became a bit unpredictable in its flight path. At times it was directly behind me, and for no reason it would veer off into the woods. I'm guessing that had something to do with my speed on the one wheel, combined with the trail direction changing slightly, and whatever objects were in front of it. Needless to say, you still need to be very careful keeping the drone closer to you in tighter trails, where you have trees on the left of you and trees on the right of you, or some kind of obstruction on either side of the trail. If it goes off into the woods, there's a good chance it's either going to be getting stuck or trapped, or hit some of the smaller branches, and it's more than likely it's going to go down. Obviously, the better choice is a trail like I did in the second video, where it's more open. But let's be honest, I had to test the narrow trail for you guys, and I wanted to know for myself what the drone could actually do. The Skydio 2 did pretty well in the tighter trail, but those smaller branches are going to get you sooner or later. It's like speeding down a highway. You might get away with it some of the time, but sooner or later you're going to get a ticket. And for a $1,000 drone, it's up to you really to decide if it's worth the risk. If I had to make a final observation, it would be this. I know that the Skydio 2 isn't perfect, and it has trouble avoiding small branches, telephone lines, power lines, and objects less than 1/2 inch in diameter. That's actually the majority of the trails I ride around here. Avoiding objects less than 1/2 inch in diameter is going to be extremely difficult where I live, and it might be an issue where you live as well. So, with that being said, you still have to use some judgment when flying the Skydio 2. It's not going to avoid every obstacle. Sorry, it's just not. And if you can find an open area like the one that I had in the second video, you're going to have a great time flying this drone. If you're flying around power lines and really small branches, your Skydio's not going to be covered by the limited warranty. Skydio spells that out pretty clearly in their safety guidelines. So make sure you check those out. I like what the drone does, and it's actually going to capture some really great action shots for you, but it's not a drone for everybody. Now, I think Skydio does a really good job detailing what the drone is and isn't capable of doing. So just set your expectations accordingly, and you're going to be extremely happy with this drone. I wish it was fully autonomous, but we're not quite there yet. Oh, and something I should also mention, if you're doing a screen capture on your iPhone or an Android phone, like I was doing in some of my videos, you'll need to keep the screen unlocked, because the minute that you lock or close your iPhone screen, the recording is going to stop. I lost some screen captures because I kept locking my phone not realizing it was actually stopping the recording. That has nothing to do with the app. It's just the way your iPhones work. Oh, and before I go, I should also mention the Skydio 2 was fine. After the initial crash, the first day, there was no damage, just a few cosmetic scratches. Fortunately, the Skydio landed in the dirt and the surrounding leaves and not on the hard trail. So we're good to go. That's it. If you got any value out of this video, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. It's always appreciated. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for future videos and notifications. And that's it. So until next time, take care, happy flying, and remember, we got this.